Happy football season. Welcome to the latest episode of the Wildcast podcast. I am Justin Spears here with Michael Lev. We're going to be talking a lot of college football week one. Absolutely loaded slate and should be very entertaining week. I mean, we got things started last week with week 0, but this week it feels like it's really getting things going. We're going to have our Big 12 Bonanza later on in the podcast. Something that we moved on. We introduced last year. It was always the Pac-12 Pick'ems, but we love alliteration here on the Wildcast podcast. So now that Arizona is in the Big 12, we're like, we got to keep our picks, but we got to keep the alliteration. So we got Big 12 Bonanza, and we have an absolutely loaded slate, and then we'll cap this podcast talking Arizona versus Hawaii. Lev, football season, man. Happy football season to you. You excited?
Thanks. Yeah, I'm glad that we're back. Just so people know, we are going to do 2 podcasts a week starting next week. If Arizona has a game on one weekend and then another game coming up, we'll kind of do a review show and a preview show. So that'll be the basic schedule. Those will probably come out on Tuesdays and Thursdays or something to that effect. We're going to record for the most part on Mondays and Wednesdays. We have a special new third prognosticator whose name we'll withhold for the time being before he comes on later in the show for his big debut in the Big 12 Bonanza. So that's cool. We have a depth chart, Justin, that I would love to talk about that came out on Monday. I would like to just start by saying that I'm very much appreciative of Brent Brennan and his staff for putting out a depth chart. Apparently, this is something that some coaches have decided that they're just not going to do for reasons that make no sense whatsoever. You know, love and respect Kyle Whittingham, but his logic or lack thereof regarding the depth chart makes no sense. He basically said, well, because we have these availability reports now, we don't need to put out a depth chart. Like, what does one have to do with the other?
Yeah.
Nothing. And as I mentioned on the platform formerly known as Twitter earlier today, there are no availability reports for non-conference games. So shouldn't you put out a depth chart at least for the non-conference games?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all. Yeah. That's just me. I'll get off my soapbox and we can actually talk about Arizona's depth chart if you'd like.
Well, it just seems very insecure.
Yeah.
Like
paranoid.
Yeah. Like, what are you so paranoid about? And I understand, like, it's a big game. Don't get me wrong. Utah is playing against UCLA in the Rose Bowl, a place that they are very familiar with. But to me, like, when I see these coaches putting out these phony depth charts, it just seems insecure. It really does.
Yeah, and it's all – and the mystery lasts for about 30 minutes of football, right? Like, by the end of the first half, pretty much know who the ones are, who the twos are, at least at certain positions, because guys will have subbed in. And none of these things are a profound mystery anymore. Yeah. Even in the transfer portal era where there's so much turnover, there's still – at least for like the top, let's say half to 3/4 of the teams in FBS, there's a lot of media coverage.
Yeah.
Right. And this is the sort of thing that people want to know. Right. Like someone asked me today, like, why am I, in favor of depth charts or why I'm an advocate of coaches putting them out? I think it's sort of a public service for the fans. Right. It just gives you like a little bit of an idea. This is what our team looks like heading into the season.
Well, let's break down Arizona's depth chart heading into their season opener against Hawaii. Now, the thing that isn't really surprising, QB1, Noah Fafita. We all knew that he was going to be the starter. Now, the other guys in the offense, I'm looking at the receiver room. Now, Arizona, they have 12 starters on their depth chart. Obviously, only 11 is going to play.
I have no problem with this, by the way.
I've got no problem with it either.
Yeah.
Now, the guys that they have listed as starters, Chris Hudson, Javon Watley, Luke Wysong, Chris Hunter, or Trey Spivey. That's one thing about depth charts is you're going to see a lot of ors on the depth chart. I don't think it's going to be Chris Hunter or Trey Spivey. I don't think that –
more like right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think, honestly, if I were to guess – the starting trio of receivers for Arizona, it's going to be Chris Hunter, the returning starter, who really ascended in the second half of the season last year, was the wide receiver 2 next to T-Mac later on, I think he can be Arizona's wide receiver one and be that go-to guy for Noah Fafita. And then Trey Spivey, who made a ton of amazing catches in training camp. You could make an argument that he had the best training camp among the wide receivers. And then Chris Hudson, who is a 60-year guy, former highly touted recruit, started his career at Oregon, was teammates with Bo Nix and had a really good relationship with him. They had a really good connection. Then he went on to play at Washington State, had a solid year last year, and is now at Arizona. It wouldn't surprise me if Chris Hudson ends up leading the Wildcats in receiving yards. And then Javon Watley, the transfer from Chattanooga, maybe Arizona's fastest receiver outside of Isaiah Mizell. He could take the top off the defense, and we saw plays in training camp where he would run a slant and Noah Fafita would get the ball into his hands, and Javon Watley, as soon as he would hit that corner or found any sort of open field, he would hit that fifth gear and just take off. So I really like his speed. I'm really impressed with this guy. But I think, honestly, the receivers, Chris Hunter, Trey Spivey, and Chris Hudson, that is the starting trio that I think will take the field on Saturday.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this a little heading into the season. There are 5 receivers who I view as sort of a cut above the rest, and those are the 5 guys who are listed as starters, okay? Let's say in an ideal situation, you've got 80 offensive snaps in a game, okay? And let's say that you're going 2 tight ends half the time and 4 receivers half the time, okay? Or something to that effect, right?
Yeah.
So let's say 3.5 receivers per play is what I'm trying to get at. That's 280 snaps available for 5 receivers so 280 divided by 5, that's 56 snaps a piece for 5 guys. That's plenty of playing time you can easily have a rotation of that many receivers. They list, Watley and Wysong as starters. Those guys are slot receivers, right? I think Hudson can play inside and out. I think Hunter probably can play inside and out. Trey Spivey is a pure outside receiver who's got a different body type than the rest. But I think a good position for Arizona, a position of strength that wasn't a position of weakness last year, but it didn't have the depth that it has now, where you feel like any of those guys 1 through 5 could have a huge week, right? Whereas last year it was kind of like T-Mac and the rest until Chris Hunter emerged over the second half of the season, so you had like maybe 1.5 receivers that you could really trust and rely upon. Now they've got, in my opinion, 5 pretty good ones.
Who can break out? So the guys that we did not mention, because Bobby Wade, Arizona's wide receivers coach, said that, quote, "We feel really good about the top 6 guys that we have." And you and I have pondered, who are those top 6 guys? We already know who the 5 guys are, the guys that you just mentioned. Is that 6th guy? Did Bobby Wade create this person, and the 6th guy is just like 3 guys put together? Is that possible?
Oh, wearing a trench coat on top of each other's shoulders. Yeah. I would say my number 1 candidate from the rest of the group would be Gio Richardson, the freshman from the state of Arizona. But I don't have like crazy high expectations for him in year 1. I think he'll flash. But it wouldn't shock me if at the end of the day he ended up in only 4 games.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of a role he's going to have on special teams. I'm pretty sure Isaiah Mizell, unless something goes terribly wrong, he's going to redshirt this year. He just needs a year in the weight room. Like he's 6'1", 164. He needs to put on at least 10 pounds. I would say you got your Devin Hyatt, your Rex Haynes, Jeremiah Patterson, kind of reliable veterans. I think that will get some playing time. Brandon Phelps had a really good spring, and then kind of not an awesome training camp. He was a little inconsistent, dropping some passes that he normally would catch. So he might still kind of be in that developmental phase. He's only a redshirt freshman at this point. So I don't see a 6th guy personally emerging this year. I think 5 is a really good number, assuming everybody stays healthy.
Now moving down to, let's do the running backs.
Sure.
Running backs, 3 guys listed as starters: Kedrick Reesano, Ismail Mahdi, and Quincy Craig. I think that they might start Risano on Saturday because he is the veteran, the guy that is a returner. He's going to have a prominent role in the offense, and I think we're going to see a lot more receptions from Kendrick Risano. I think he's going to be catching the ball out of the backfield more than he did last year, and I think that goes with all of Arizona's running backs. I think they're going to have more of an effect in the passing game than what we saw last year with whatever Dino Babers' offense was. But I think, if we're going to talk about
nobody knows what that was.
Yeah, honestly, that was interesting offense. But anyways, I think that Kendrick Risano, I think that he's probably going to be the starter as far as the guy with the most rushing yards and maybe the most productive. When it's all said and done, I'll probably say Ismail Mahdi, but I think all three of those guys are going to be very productive. I'm not really sure how many starts we're going to see out of Quincy Craig, but he's certainly going to be a guy that could be Arizona's most versatile running back. And one element to Quincy Craig that I really love, he's a really good blocker. We've seen the backs versus backers blocking drill where the running backs are kind of lined up on the line of scrimmage, almost like an offensive tackle, and they got to pick up the blitzing linebacker. He was probably the best one out of all those guys. And what's crazy is that he's probably like 10 to 15 pounds lighter than the other guys. Like he is like 195 pounds or something like that. And he is lighter in comparison to the other guys. Maybe not 15 pounds lighter, but still.
He's 18 pounds lighter than Risano.
Oh, maybe.
Listed. Okay. It just doesn't, if you looked at them, you wouldn't think that.
No.
Because he's got thick legs, thick trunk. He's strong. I think, Justin, that there's two positions where it's like or everybody's listed as a starter. One of them is running back. One of them is tight end. I think one of them is the truth. One of them is not. Like, I think running backs, it's truly a three-headed monster. I think they're all pretty much on equal footing. And they're all going to play. And again, similar to wide receivers, I think it could be different guys each week who end up having the big week. What I would like to see, and this is what I'm going to write about in Cat Stats this week, a little sneak preview for people. I would like to see a greater commitment to the running game, period. Okay. So they had 335 total rushing attempts last year. For a full season, that was the fewest since 2011 when they had 331. That was the year before Rich Rod got here with his very, run heavy quarterback, run the ball offense. Then I went in and I adjusted for sacks. So I took sacks out of the equation and looked at the, what I guess I would call adjusted attempts. And I took those adjusted attempts, divided those by number of games played. So a new stat, sack adjusted rushing attempts per game. Okay. They had the fewest in that period last year, 25.58. Barely, slightly below 2011's 25.67.
Wow.
So you could say, they were down a lot, etc. But they had more rushing attempts per game in the season when they went 1-11, and in the season when they went 0-5. Okay, so we'll dive into those numbers a little bit. Seth Doege has 1 year as an offensive coordinator. Did run the ball quite a bit at Marshall, despite being an air raid disciple. So I am hopeful that we will see a greater commitment to the run. I also think that's a good way to attack Hawaii based on what we saw on Saturday night against Stanford.
Well, and also, I hate the fact that I have to bring this up here, but do you almost look at Hawaii, and these coaches will never admit this, but you got Kansas State coming up here in a couple of weeks. Hawaii, Weber State, do you feel like you can use the bar menu, right? Keep it very light on the playbook and just run the hell out of the football and don't really reveal your hand when it comes to passing the football, because you want to make sure you can throw everything at Kansas State and they're not going to be as prepared for it. So maybe the first 2 weeks is dedicated to establishing the run because of Kansas State.
I think they're going to take nothing to chance against Hawaii. They need to build positive momentum among the fan base. They need to build confidence among the players. We'll break down the Hawaii game later in the show, but I'm not taking any chances. I'm not assuming anything. I'm going all out to try to blow them out as fast as I can. So I wouldn't hold anything back. Maybe the following week you'd go with a vanilla type of game plan against Weber State. But that didn't necessarily work against NAU last year either. So You play to win the game, Justin.
Hello. You play to
Hello.
win the game. So, okay, real quick, one last thing on tight end.
Yeah.
Sam Olsen take the field first. Tyler Powell. Who's the starter?
Maybe two tights. I mean, those guys were pretty much 50-50 during camp, right? So it's Olsen and Powell. I would say they might give Olsen the nod just because he's a redshirt senior and all that kind of thing. Wouldn't surprise me if it was Powell. I think Powell has more upside, more size. So there's a little bit more potential there. They list Cameron Barmore and Kean Burnett as Orr's starters also. Barmore definitely came on a little bit in training camp after really scuffling in spring. Seemed like the adjustment was difficult for him. And then Kean Burnett is that's just a total unknown right now because of another injury situation that he's coming back from. I would say ideally he'll be able to come back by, let's say, the Kansas State game. And then, that's just a guess on my part. And then we'll see what he looks like, we've talked about this before. Like, he has to prove that he can stay on the field to be to live up to his potential. And that's been a struggle for him so far.
All right, moving on to the offensive line. Very interesting one. And this is the most.
There's one position that's super interesting, right?
Very, very interesting depth chart when it comes to the O-line. So at left tackle, we have Texas Tech transfer Ty Buchanan, the big vegetarian at 6'6", 314 pounds.
No surprise there.
Left guard, Michael Wooten, the former tackle, who they feel like is better inside, and I have to agree. I thought he showed some good stuff in camp compared to what we saw last year at tackle, with Chuba Mai as the backup left guard.
No surprises there, if you've been following along. Yeah.
At center, you've got Hawaii transfer Kiana DeCambra, who has taken over that starting center spot ever since the start of camp. Right guard, Alexander Deuce, the freshman All-American by Pro Football Focus. He's coming back for another season as a starter, 6'7", 330 pounds. I think he's going to be one of Arizona's better offensive linemen. And then we get to right tackle, where we got another or situation. And it's Michigan transfer, Tristan Bounds at 6'8", 291 pounds, and Rhino Tapatotai, the redshirt sophomore who suffered a season-ending leg injury last year and is coming back. And we were all guessing, really in the spring, in training camp, where are they going to put Rhino? Are they going to put him at left tackle and maybe move Ty Buchanan to guard? Are they going to put Rhino at left guard? Because Josh Oglesby and others, they've talked about Arizona is going to have the 5 best offensive linemen on the field. Well, if we're talking about the best 5 guys, Tristan Bounds is on that list. I'd put Tristan Bounds ahead of Michael Wooten on that list. So do you put Rhino Tapatotai at left guard over Michael Wooten? I'm just wondering where Rhino is going to fit. And they have him slotted at right tackle, which is a position that he played when he first got to Arizona. And then after Raymond Polito left the team last season, Rhino really assumed that starting left tackle role. And now they got him at right tackle. And so are they going to put him at right tackle and have Tristan Bounds play more as a swing? Is Rhino going to even play this weekend? Or do they keep him for maybe the Weber State game so he can get that tune-up game before they get to that big one against Kansas State? Right tackle, going to be interesting. I'm very, very interested in seeing who's going to be on Arizona's starting offensive line this Saturday.
Yeah, we got kind of a hint that this might be the position where Rhino would slot in based on when he was shadowing, the offensive line, where he would line up and the types of steps that he would take. It looked like he was gearing up to play right tackle. I would not be surprised at all if they sat him out for the first game and then went straight like 50-50 with Tristan Bounds in the second game. And then it's sort of see where guys are at.
Yeah.
Like we've got some tape. We'll see how Rhino feels, how he looks, knock the rust off, etc. I think it would be, difficult for Tristan Bounds to swallow if he was displaced from the starting lineup. But I would also say that you will need more than 5 over the course of the season. You can figure out who your best 5 are, but you're going to need more than 5 because guys get hurt.
Yeah.
Guys have to shuffle around. So maybe Tristan Bounds becomes that guy who can play either side. Ty Buchanan has a tiny bit of experience at guard, not a ton. Rhino, I don't think has played guard, but it makes more sense on paper maybe than in reality. But if those are your top 3 tackles, Tristan Bounds, Rhino, and Ty Buchanan, that's not a bad situation to be in.
Not at all.
And someone's going to have to swallow their ego a little bit because they're not going to be a full-time player. But they're very cautious in terms of bringing guys back from injury. I think they have a new trainer they brought over from Tennessee, and that's been kind of a consistent approach. So they're not going to rush anybody back. We'll talk about like a couple of those guys on defense too here as we switch over to the other side of the ball.
Well, let's talk about defense.
Yeah.
So the defensive depth chart on the D line,
12 guys again.
12 guys once again. Let's start off in the secondary, the deepest group.
Maybe the most controversial.
Yeah.
One too. Yeah, because there's one position. Yep.
Well, Genesis Smith is your free safety, or in Danny Gonzalez's defense, it's called the Bear. I think Brian Urlacher played the Bear spot at New Mexico. So
hopefully Genesis will. I don't think you watched the show The Bear, Justin. So maybe this will be lost on you. But hopefully he's like less anxiety than the Bear on the show The Bear.
He's not cussing out everyone.
Cussing out or stressing out or whatever. Genesis seems like a real chill dude, so I doubt that that's the case.
But other guys in the secondary include strong safety Dalton Johnson, and then Traden Stukes is listed in that nickel spot. But I'd probably say that Gavin Hunter, the redshirt sophomore from Hawaii, is probably going to start there, and maybe they have Traden Stukes on like a pitch count, where they get him in just to get that game experience. Danny Gonzalez didn't rule that out. And then at cornerback, Michael Dansby or Aiden Garnes. And then on the other one, you have Marquise Groves-Killebrew or Aiden Garnes. So it looks like Aiden Garnes is probably going to start at one of those corner spots. But who's going to start at the other side? Because Marquise Groves-Killebrew is coming back from injury. We don't know what's going to go on, what's going to happen with him, or what's the timetable like for him. But then you also have Javion Cole, the transfer from Texas, who had a great spring. I mean, out of all the cornerbacks, he might have had the best spring out of all of them. And then Michael Dansby, who had the best training camp out of all the cornerbacks. If I were to guess who's going to be the starting cornerbacks, I'd probably say Aiden Garnes and Michael Dansby. What say you?
I would agree that that's the case. They earned it with their performance in training camp, right? Michael Dansby, huge jump from spring to fall. And Aiden Garnes, he was playing almost exclusively inside at that nickel spot in the spring, and they moved him to the outside, and he looked great. He looked just fine. What surprises me about this, Justin, is MGK, Marquise Groves-Killebrew, is listed as a co-starter, and Javion Cole is not.
Yeah.
So MGK missed a lot of time in training camp because of injury. Javion was out there every single day, taking a ton of reps. And I think Javion, in my opinion, has the highest upside of among the 3 new transfers. Okay, among the Dansby, Garnes, and Cole, I think Javion's got the highest upside, but he might be the most inconsistent.
Yeah.
Right. Some great plays, and then some plays where you're like, gosh, he really shouldn't have allowed that reception to happen so easily. So maybe that's what it is. I think consistency, it's going to come up again when we get to special teams, I think too. I feel like that's something that this coaching staff values, that data. So maybe they're maybe placing a little bit higher, more value on the day-to-day consistency versus the flashes of greatness. And then maybe you're not so great the other day, but I expect Javion Cole to play too.
Yeah.
Even though he's not listed as a co-starter, I think all 4 of those guys are going to play. I don't think it's going to be a situation like Genesis and Dalton are going to be on the field the whole game unless it's a blowout. Traden Stukes, when he gets healthy, I think he'll be on the field the whole game unless it's a blowout. I think they're going to rotate at corner. And I think they should, because those guys had a lot of running to do.
Well, and Danny Gonzalez even said that they look at those four corners as starters. Like they are starter level. They feel comfortable starting any one of those guys. All right, now moving on to linebacker. 3 linebackers listed, because remember, it's the 12-player depth chart. Chase Kennedy, Max Harris, and Tay Brown. Tay Brown, the junior from Chandler, played at Hamilton High School. Really didn't really start to become a starter until last year. There were some moments where you didn't even realize that Tay Brown was on the field. Like very pedestrian, just kind of out there. And I feel like this year we're going to see Tay Brown really take that next step forward. And I don't know if it was because maybe he was holding back a little bit because when he was going into the season, Jacob Manu was the guy that was the glue piece, the guy that kept everybody together. And maybe Tay Brown was like, hey, man, I'm just this complimentary linebacker. I'm just out here trying to lead by example. Now that Manu is out of the equation, I think that Tay Brown is like, okay, now I'm the guy. Now I'm the voice of the defense. I have to be that player that keeps everybody together. And so Tay Brown has really worked on his vocal leadership. And I think that now that he is 3 years into the system or 3 years in college, I think that we're going to see Tay Brown really take that next step forward, and we're going to see him start to make more plays. And I think the other guys that he has with him they all have a very unique skill set, especially Chase Kennedy and Riley Wilson. Chase Kennedy was a guy who started several games at defensive end last year. Riley Wilson has edge rushing experience as well. So I would imagine Danny Gonzalez is probably going to roll out a 4-2-5 defense to start. But that 3-3-5 look, that's going to be a very, very important scheme for what they want to do. What my awesome dollar package, the package that Arizona rolled out for the last couple of years, they might roll that out from time to time. But if we're talking about a secondary defense that you're going to see really come up, that 3-3-5 look with Danny Gonzalez, having disguised blitzes and doing a bunch of different stuff with the linebackers, I really think we're going to see that. And then a guy that I just mentioned, Max Harris, a really good space linebacker. And I think you mentioned it a little while ago, Lev, was a defensive back when he was recruited out of high school. So when you put on that weight, that linebacker weight, which is good weight for Max Harris, and then you have those defensive back abilities, I mean, you're versatile and you could really do a lot of things as that space linebacker. So I'm a big fan of what Arizona has been able to do with that linebacker room.
Yeah, so similar to how, sometimes they'll have 2 tight ends and 2 wide receivers, or 3 wide receivers and 1 tight end on offense, they will have 4-2-5 or 3-3-5. One defensive end comes off, an outside linebacker comes on. It's just a little bit of a different look. Sometimes that guy will rush. Sometimes he'll drop back. Heck, we even saw the defensive end drop back sometimes, right?
Yeah.
During training camp. So I think people, if they like defense and they like pay close attention to what Danny Gonzalez is going to do, it's going to be a lot of different looks, and you just don't know based on the pre-snap image, in the quarterback's mind. You don't know what's going to happen. Like a lot of guys crowding the line of scrimmage. Remember the Houston game last year where they did that a ton? They brought like everybody up to the line. You just didn't kind of know what they were going to do, and we're kind of like, man, they should do this all the time. I think Danny's going to do it all the time. Chase Kennedy, I think I'm gonna call it right now. I think he's going to have a breakout season. I really do. I think there's a lot of athleticism there, and I think Danny Gonzalez is going to get the best out of him. He's kind of that, queen on the chessboard, right? Like who could just do a lot of different things. So I think I see a breakout year coming. Riley Wilson it'll be interesting to see how much he plays. He missed a lot of time in camp, too. But they like his athleticism as well. Maybe we'll see both of them out there at times. Who knows? That could be something they save for Kansas State.
But you mentioned breakout stars, and this is a good segue to the defensive line, because I think if there's any breakout star, it's going to be a guy that's in his last season with the program, and that's Trey Smith, defensive captain, 28 quarterback pressures and only 4.5 sacks. You gotta complete the play, man. And I think with Joe Salavea's coaching and his mentorship, I think you're going to start to see Trey Smith really execute the play and finish the play. And I think there were way too many times last year where Trey Smith just went too far upfield. And when you're playing against a mobile quarterback, which Arizona is playing against on Saturday, Micah Alejado, he can use his feet and get out and run. I'm curious to see how much that's going to be true because he's dealing with a leg injury. And we'll talk about that coming up here in a little bit. But there were way too many times where a mobile quarterback would slip under him and run for 10 plus yards. Running backs all the time. I mean, shoot, it happened several times against ASU. So I think now that Joe Salovey is teaching these guys to not just bull rush upfield and play reckless, almost so reckless to the point where you're allowing big plays to happen, I think Trey Smith is going to be in a position to make plays. And I think he's going to execute those plays. And, he was at 4.5 sacks last year. I think we're going to see that number. I think it's going to
double.
I think it's going to double. I really do. I think he's going to get into that 8 to 9 sack range when it's all said and done. So I'm excited for Trey Smith on the defensive end or at defensive end. And he's listed as a starter with Mays Pese, the freshman from Southern California. He's listed as his backup, even though his body type definitely looks more like a defensive tackle.
Agreed. Yep.
Tia Savea is also listed as a starter with Julian Savianaya as his backup. And Julian has put on over 30 pounds of muscle since he got to Arizona. And we had a chance to talk to him a couple days ago, and he was talking about, he always wanted to play defensive line because of the aggressiveness. And him and his brother, Jonas Savianaya, who's going to be here as an honorary captain along with Tyler Loop, they would go do one-on-ones in the park. So they would always work together. And maybe, Julian Savianaya, now that he's put some weight on his frame and all the experience with Jonah, now that he is up to 280 pounds, maybe we could see Julian start to take off this year. But I look at Tia Savea as a rock-solid guy right there in the middle. And then Deshaun McKnight is listed as a co-starter with Leroy Palu. When it's all said and done, the two defensive tackles are Deshaun McKnight and Tia Savea. Those are the two starters. But they like what they see out of Leroy Palu, who's a transfer from Cerritos College, is the first addition to Arizona's defensive line since they hired Joe Salovey. I think he might have committed to Arizona like a week after Joe Salovey took the job. And then Dominic Lalesio, he's the other defensive end at 6'4", 252 pounds with Malachi Bailey as a backup. I think those backups, very interesting. Malachi Bailey hit a really good camp. The transfer from Alcorn State, kind of like what you mentioned with Cameron Barmore, just that transition from FCS to Power 4 football, that could be a lot to handle. And I think we're starting to see Malachi Bailey really start to settle in and really be more comfortable. And it would not surprise me if he is one of Arizona's sack leaders when it's all said and done. I mean, he was, had 28 sacks in a couple seasons at Alcorn State. So the guy's a stud. I expect him to really step up big time for Arizona. Jara Bear Anderson, who was out last year with a leg injury, I think he is really starting to come into his own. Those backups, they're going to play such a prominent role because they need as many guys as possible to be there to stop the run, which is a big problem for Arizona last year.
Yeah, I think they talked about having 9 or 10 guys that they could rely on, but I think that number as of today is maybe more like 6. But if you also look at, the Riley Wilson and Chase Kennedys of the world as edge rushers, maybe that number becomes 8, right? Depends on how you categorize them. They're listed as linebackers, so, we will view them as linebackers too. Keep an eye on Malachi Bailey. Had a really, really good camp. There's, Chancellor Owens is on this depth chart too at nose tackle. They've talked about how strong he is, maybe the strongest player on the team, him or Alexander Deuced, but just raw, doesn't have the techniques and fundamentals at this point. If he can figure it out, maybe he'll have something. He's got 2 more years too. So there's still some time there. And someone who's not on the depth chart, just to keep in the back of your mind, is Zach Siulepa, the junior college transfer from New Zealand.
Very large man.
He is a very large man, too large to play as of right now. He's going to have to drop some weight. He came in at 6'6", 389. So that is a very, very large individual. I'm sure they'd like him to drop about 30 pounds. So he's got his work cut out for him. I highly doubt we're going to see him in the first couple games. Maybe even you go all the way through to like the start of Big 12 play, right? Because that would give him a full month, basically, 3 games and a bye week. If they could get him, a part of the rotation, a huge, we don't know if he can play. We haven't seen it yet, but like huge figure in the middle of that line, bigger than anyone else they've got. I mean, the largest, the heaviest guys are 301, right? So there isn't that like 350-pound nose tackle type guy in there. Maybe he can be that guy for the final, 8 games of the season.
All right, now let's move on to Lev's favorite special teams, the kicking game, baby. So going into training camp with the additions that they made, right? They got Ian Wagner from Illinois State. They also have Tyler Perjune, this walk-on freshman from Carlsbad, California, who looked very impressive in training camp. I was impressed with the walk-on freshman.
Yep.
I think he's got a bright future at Arizona. And they also added Isaac Lovison, the transfer from Australia, who played Aussie rules football and has 1 year left of eligibility for now. And
I wonder if he knows the Hawaii punter, who's also an Aussie rules football veteran, who's 29 years old.
29.
By the way. Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's almost as old as you, Justin.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
you guys are peers.
That's crazy. There's a guy, I am 30 years old, and there's a guy that's damn near as old as me currently playing college football. What a time. What a time. But anyways, the Isaac Lovison, he comes in, and I was impressed with him. I mean, you are just looking at him, very impressive guy. He looks like he could be a linebacker for Arizona. And not only can he kick the hell out of the football, also has some nice touch too. When they were doing some coffin corner drills, there were some punts that landed just inside the 2-yard line. So he's got some good touch, has the leg strength. I thought he was going to be Arizona's starting punter. And then Michael Salgado Medina, he ended up winning the place kicking job. But on the depth chart, MSM, not mainstream media, Michael Salgado Medina, he is listed as both the starting kicker and punter. And Brent Brennan said, that wasn't the plan going into training camp, but, things happened in training camp, and that's the plan right now. So I think what I think is going to happen is Michael Salgado Medina, he might start at both place kicker and punter, and I think he's going to take reps at both spots. But eventually, at some point, he's going to have one job and really one job only, and just be the backups to the other guys. I don't buy that Michael Salgado Medina is going to be the starting kicker and punter for the entirety of the season.
Yeah, I you don't bring in an Isaac Lovison, all the way from Australia, handpicked by first-year special teams coordinator Craig Nyvar without intending to use him. I think he has 1 year of eligibility, as best we can tell. You never know these days. But like I thought he showed flashes of greatness during training camp, but then there was like 1 out of every 5 punts or so would be like a shank. And I think that's probably what freaked out the coaches. Maybe this guy is not quite ready yet. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they punt multiple times against Hawaii, which they might not. But if they do, I wouldn't surprise me if we saw both of them.
Yeah.
Like you got to integrate this guy. I don't love the idea of someone doing kicking and punting. I've talked about like how it always amazes me how in the NFL, if one or the other gets injured, like, oh my God, the punter's kicking or the kicker's punting. Like they should be able to do that in a pinch, but I don't think it's like to the in the best interest of the team or the player for them to be doing that all the time. Right. Because they are 2 different disciplines. So I agree with you. I think eventually we're going to see a change to what this looks like. And wouldn't surprise me at all if it ended up with Lovison ascending to the top job as a punter. Just a little more variety to his game too. And he gets the ball off a little bit quicker.
Kickoff guy will be Ian Wagner, the Sierra Vista native, and the transfer from Illinois State. Long snapper will be Avery Salerno, the transfer from Jackson State. And then kick returners, Ismail Mahdi, Quincy Craig, Jeremiah Patterson, and Chris Hudson. No surprise there. All those guys were taking reps at returner in training camp. All right. Now, let's hit the pause button because we got to bring on a very special guest. We're going to bring him on here in just a second. Stick around. Okay, now let's reveal the identity of our celebrity picker every single week. It's not just like College Game Day where we have a celebrity, a different guy every single week. This guy's going to be joining us every week, or at least we hope. But his picks are at least going to be a part of Big 12 Bonanza. It is Jordan Hamm from Sports 360 AZ. Jordan, welcome to the podcast. Sorry I didn't give you like this grand introduction like Jason Kelsey does with all the guests on New Heights podcast, but dude, we're very honored to have you be a part of Big 12 Bonanza this year.
Hey man, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and I'm pretty sure Jason Kelsey ripped a vocal cord doing the Taylor Swift one. So you just called me a celebrity, so we're using celebrity very liberally, but I'm excited to be here.
Dude, excited to have you be a part of the podcast every single week and do our picks. And we do this every single year. We always pick against the spread. And we kind of just look over during non-conference play. We look at kind of the most important games in Big 12 play. And then once we get into conference play, we go over every single matchup every single week. Just real quick, though, general thoughts on the Arizona Wildcats as we go into the season opener, Jordan?
Yeah, I think that it is a team. It's going to look a lot different than last year. I just every time I come to Tucson and I get to spend time with y'all on the sideline, it just looks like this is much more of Brent Brennan's team, and his fingerprints and his identity is all over it. Where last year it just felt like, they came in late. They had to play a lot of defense during spring ball of making sure guys didn't enter the transfer portal, and you can't really, you're flying the plane while also trying to build the culture at the same time. And this feels very much like the culture is now built. The identity is there. The players that left have left, and the guys that are there want to be there, and they're quote unquote their guys. So yes, there are some big names that have either moved on to the NFL or moved on elsewhere, but I'm excited about this wide receiver core. I think there's a lot of guys that can make some big plays, and we've heard so many times that it's on one day it's Luke Wysong, on one day it's Trey Spivey, on one day it's somebody else. So I think that's going to be kind of the narrative for the for that room, and I think it's a big year for Noah Fafita. And him and Seth Dagey have been in lockstep, so I'm expecting a bounce back from him. I think it's really going to come down to the trenches on both sides for this team. Yep. That's where I think, whether it was depth or injury issues or just not being able to play at a high level, that's where I think a lot of the shortcomings happened last year. They certainly have brought in a lot of guys, and we'll see if it's the right guys here as we get ready for week one.
Well, speaking of week one, Lev, take us away, man. Let's get to it. Big 12 Bonanza.
So this is how we know that Jordan is a true professional. He's dropping the Kelsey name as we segue right into Cincinnati against Nebraska, right? This game is at 6:00 on Thursday night. It's on ESPN, and it's taking place at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City. It feels like this was all orchestrated, right? Like the Kelsey brothers went to Cincinnati. Travis Kelsey gets engaged to Taylor Swift. The game is a couple nights later. I am sure we will see an appearance by at least one half of the happy couple, right? At this particular game at Arrowhead. So Nebraska, they're kind of a top 25 adjacent team is what I would call them. Like some people think this might be the year that they break through under Matt Rule. They kind of did last year, going 7-6. They have a quarterback in Dylan Raiola, who's sort of like the Patrick Holmes mini-me, right? So what a place for him to make his 2025 debut.
I was about to say, if we don't see a Kelsey, at least we get to see Pat Mahomes in some form.
Exactly.
Great value, Mahomes.
Yeah, Kirkland Mahomes.
Timu Mahomes. So he had a pretty good freshman year. I mean, 13-11 touchdown to interception ratio. Completed a high percentage of his passes, 67.1%. I like the quarterback on the other side too. That's Brendan Sorsby, sorry. 18-7 touchdown to interception ratio. Yeah. Last year, 64% passer. I think Cincinnati is like a little bit underrated. as a team coming into this season. But I think Nebraska is on the ascent. I also think, even though this game is in Kansas City, that it is essentially going to be a Nebraska home game. So I am going to lay the 6.5 points, and I am going to take the Cornhuskers. Whoever wants to jump in,
man, I'm going with Cincy to win because of the Kelsey train, man. I feel like there's just so much momentum going on right now with the Kelsey family. So I'm going to go with Cincinnati to win this game. But like you said, Brendan Sorsby, great dual threat quarterback, had a breakout season last year. I think he scored 27 overall touchdowns and had like over 3,000 all-purpose yards. I think that we're going to see a very impressive performance by him using his legs and also using his arm. I love Dante Corleone, a.k.a. the Godfather, their star defensive tackle in Cincinnati. He's one of the top interior defensive linemen in college football. And so I think that Cincinnati defensive line, I think they get to mini Mahomes, which don't even get me started on that. You know, doing a podcast with all of his Nebraska teammates, and he's just like, listen, I know we have the same haircut and we have the same number, and I do the pregame ritual that he does. I literally do everything that he does, all the way down to wearing the Pit Viper glasses, walking into the stadium. But I can't help that we look alike. I'm like, dude, you are mimicking every little thing. It would have been awesome if he just came out and said, yeah, you know what? That's the best quarterback in the league. I'm trying to emulate that. I want to be Patrick Mahomes. So if I got to emulate him down to his mannerisms, I'm going to do that. But he keeps refusing to admit that he's cosplaying Patrick Mahomes. And I tweeted this out. It reminds me of the movie The Other Guys, where Michael Keaton, a.k.a. Captain Gene, kept making TLC references, right? Telling the guys, don't go chasing waterfalls. I don't want no scrubs. You just got to creep. And then they would be like, come on, man, are you making TLC references? And he's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. That's Dylan Raiola refusing to admit that he's cosplaying Patrick Mahomes. But with that being said, with the stuff on the field, I agree with Lev. I think that Nebraska with Matt Rule, this is year 3 for him. This is where you could really judge Matt Rule as head coach of Nebraska. But I got Cincinnati in the Kelsey train riding high. I'm going with the Bearcats to pull off the upset at Arrowhead.
I'm going the same way. I'm going Cincinnati. I think Sorsby is one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the Big 12, maybe even the country. They have a 2-headed monster in their backfield, not including Sorsby, Tyree Walker, who played a year of prep ball over at Peoria Centennial here in Arizona, and then Evan Pryor. So this was a team last year that started the year 5-2 and then just completely fell off. So we've seen that they've been able to get out to hot starts. They were one of those teams that took down ASU, that took down Texas Tech. And then the defense really started to crumble. I think a couple injuries happened. So that's a team that I just think I'm high on. And, I think just people are kind of overlooking it's easy with 16 teams to have kind of that middle tier. I think they're on the higher end of that and could creep into that upper tier if they get off to a hot start and are able to maintain that, unlike what they were able to do last year.
I'd just like to point out to Justin that the Kelsey brothers aren't playing in the game. They might attend the game. So
good juju, though.
Yes, for sure. Okay, so Friday night is usually reserved for high school football, but man, there are 2 great games involving Big 12 teams on Friday night at 5:00. The first one we're going to talk about is Georgia Tech at Colorado. Of course, this game is on ESPN. Where else? If Deion Sanders is involved, I guess it could be on Fox too, but it's on ESPN. And the Rambling Wreck, the Yellow Jackets, they are 4.5-point favorites in Boulder. This week, Deion Sanders named Caden Salter the starting quarterback, transfer from Liberty, had an amazing 2023 season, 32 total touchdowns, 60.8% completion rate. Last year, not as good, 15 total touchdowns, 55.7% completion rate. I am guessing, I didn't watch every Liberty football game, but I'm guessing the supporting cast wasn't quite as good. They didn't have, as good a year as a team. Last year, his rushing stats also fell off, but he is considered a dual threat. Speaking of dual threats, we got Haynes King back on the other side for a 6th year of college football. Really good at protecting the ball last year. Only 2 interceptions the whole season. Completed 72.9%. Rushed for 587 yards and 11 touchdowns. To me, this game is all about the trenches. Georgia Tech is a more physical team than Colorado. I do not know how Colorado is going to respond and react to the loss of their two superstars, right? Including the Heisman Trophy winner who played almost every snap on both sides of the ball, and Travis Hunter. A year ago, Georgia Tech was top 32 in the nation in rushing offense and defense. Colorado was nearly last in rushing offense and 71st in rushing defense. So even though, there's the potential for a magical Friday night in Boulder for the home side, and I love that atmosphere there, I'm going to take Georgia Tech, and I'm going to lay the 4.5.
Ooh, well, you mentioned two superstars. There's actually three superstars that they're missing. Ralphie, she's retiring. Ralphie the sixth, right? She's no longer going to be running out onto the field. I don't know what they're going to do.
Is there a Ralphie the seventh?
I hope there's a Ralphie.
Isn't that how this works?
So they are getting Ralphie the seventh up and running, but she's not quite there yet. So they are training her, but they feel like she's not game ready yet. I assume it's also a girl. I'm not sure the gender of said buffalo, but
whether it's a boy or a girl, they need Ralphie out on the field. I don't know. It was the other Ralphie. It just wasn't working.
You know what the reason is? It's incredible. An indifference to running is what they described it as.
Well, I have that. Can I retire?
Precisely. You don't see Adam Schefter tweeting about me and my indifference to running.
Yeah.
Like I feel you, Ralphie. I'm going to go beyond indifference. Like I have no interest in running whatsoever. So
yeah, so no Ralphie this week. No Shedeur Sanders, no Travis Hunter. Maybe they should put Ralphie's number in the rafters, or in put her in the ring of honor.
Maybe more deserving than one of those guys you just mentioned. But anyway,
definitely Shedeur. Yeah. But anyways, Kaden Salter, the new starting quarterback for Colorado, interesting player. I'm curious how the passing game is going to look, because they're without. I mean, people talk about Travis Hunter, but they don't have LaJohntay Wester. They don't have Jimmy Horn Jr. Like, they lost a lot of production in that receiver room. So who are the next guys going to step up? Is it Omari and Miller? There are some other guys that are interesting in that receiver room. So I think we're going to see kind of those first game kinks that they got to work out. And it's against a really tough Georgia Tech team. I think Jordan Seaton is maybe the best offensive lineman in the conference at left tackle. So I think Colorado, I think they're going to win this game, but I think it's going to be very close. So I'll go Colorado to win, but Georgia Tech to cover.
I'm big on Haynes and Haynes with the Ramble and Rack. There's Haynes King, and then Jamal Haynes is the running back, and another one that has played a lot for them. They have a nice little core that they're bringing back. And, we mentioned, some of those big names, BJ Green, also on the defensive side of the ball. Colorado's missing a lot of guys, and there are a lot of question marks. And I don't know if we're going to have a Colorado TCU 2.0 here from a couple years ago, but it just feels like the sure thing is Georgia Tech. So I'm going to go with them.
Oh, Lev, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, Colorado is getting points, Justin. So if you're picking Colorado, you're picking Colorado to win as an outright upset, right?
Oh, I thought it was Georgia Tech minus 4.5.
No, it is. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So if you're picking Colorado to win, they're the one getting the points.
Yes. Colorado pull off the upset.
It's week 1 for everyone. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Colorado, I like it. Go against the grain. I'm always in favor of that. All right. Same time, Friday night on Fox, 5:00. We've got Auburn visiting Baylor. Auburn is favored by 2.5 points in this game. I think I would call that the SEC bump right there. These were two teams that I, was in that pool of, 8 to 10 teams that I was looking at for the bottom 5 of my top 25. I'd decided to go with Baylor instead of Auburn in that group. They're at home. They're getting points. They finished last season on a roll. They won their last 6 regular season games. They averaged 41.3 points in those games. Sawyer Robertson really came on as a big-time quarterback and finished the season with a 28-8 touchdown to interception ratio, including 25-7 in the Big 12. Bryson Washington is back in the backfield. And on the other side, a name that's familiar to Arizona fans, Jackson Arnold, is now the quarterback for the Auburn Tigers. He, of course, was the starting quarterback for Oklahoma in the Alamo Bowl, and he was a 5-star, huge recruit. We don't know if he's any good, right? We really don't. Oklahoma was not a good team last year. He lost his starting job. He decided to transfer. I think it's better supporting cast for him this year. Really good wide receiving core, top 30 defense. But like I said, I had Baylor ahead of Auburn heading into the season. They're at home. They're getting points. I'm going to take the Bears plus 2.5.
Yeah, the Bears got on a hot streak last year. We were talking about, is Dave Aranda coaching for his job? We were having that discussion, and then they got on that hot streak, and I think Dave Aranda got himself another year. But man, that defense. Are we sure that defense is going to hold up against Auburn? Because Auburn, they have Jackson Arnold, who is a pretty mobile quarterback too. He could beat you with his feet as well. Very athletic. And then they have really good receivers. We're talking about maybe one of the best receiving core in the SEC right now. So I think Auburn is just going to go out there and they're going to put up a ton of points against Baylor. I think Baylor is a solid team this year, but I have a lot of question marks about that defense. So I'm going to go with Auburn to win and cover.
I think by the end of the year, Baylor is going to be one of the more battle-tested teams in this conference because you have Auburn in the non-con. You have SMU in the non-conference. You open up Big 12 play against ASU. You catch Kansas State and TCU all in the first half of the season. So it might be another repeat of maybe they're kind of towards the bottom and work their way up. But with what Sawyer Robertson did last year, I think was just incredible. And again, they were kind of towards the bottom, so they flew under the radar for a bit. But those three of the games that he played in where they lost, 2 of them were by 1 score. So they were right there. I'm a big believer in what Baylor's doing. And I feel better about them being in the Big 12 championship than maybe like an Iowa State, honestly.
Really?
If they can, if all of your concerns with the defense are certainly valid, but I just like that firepower that they have. And if they can stay healthy and kind of, weather the storm in the first half of the season, I think they could be right there. So I took them outright over Auburn.
I like it.
I like it.
All right. So moving on to Saturday, first game involves the aforementioned Iowa State Cyclones. Now they are facing South Dakota. Does anyone know what South Dakota's team mascot is?
Oh, Coyotes, right?
It's the Coyotes. Yes.
Hell yeah.
This is not South Dakota State, the Jackrabbits, who are multi-time FCS champions, but South Dakota was in the FCS semifinals last year. They're a very good program. This game, which is on Fox at 12:30 p.m. on Saturday, only a 14.5-point spread, despite the fact that Iowa State is coming off a win. They're at home. They're facing an FCS opponent. So what's going on there? We'll see. I thought that Rocco Becht, even though he was only 14 for 28 in that game, and Ireland made the plays that needed to be made. He protected the ball, didn't throw a pick, ran for a touchdown. He plays with a lot of moxie, right? He's not nearly as gifted as his counterpart, Avery Johnson, athletically, but he's a better football player. They ran the ball way better in the second half. They also had 1 penalty the entire game for 5 yards. And that safety, Marcus Neal Jr. had a monster game, 8 tackles, a pass breakup, 4 defensive stops per PFF. So, they looked really good, but I think this is sort of a little bit of a letdown situation. They're coming off that, that taxing travel. So I am going to take Iowa State to win this game, but I think there's a reason the spread is that low. Vegas knows something. I'll take the points and take South Dakota to SD. I'll take South Dakota to cover the 14.5, but Iowa State wins the game by, let's say, 10 to 13 points.
maybe Vegas thinks that their internal body clocks are still catching up from their trip in Ireland. But here's the thing, that game in Ireland, that was sloppy, and a lot of it had to do with the weather and also the field that they were playing on. Like, I would imagine it's hard to play a football game on a soccer pitch when it's rainy and it's just messy, right? So I think now that they're back in Iowa, back in the sunshine of Ames, Iowa, I think the weather is going to be great. I think we're going to see Rocco Becht and that offense be at its best. Will there be a chance for like a backdoor cover, right? Like South Dakota makes a field goal to make it, 17-14, maybe. But I think that, even though South Dakota, they've got a lot of good things going on with their head coach, Bob Nielsen, who I think is in his 10th year as head coach. They went 11-3 last season. Like that's a really good FCS program. But Iowa State, Matt Campbell, a ton of credit to him. I mean, this was a coach who turned down other college opportunities, other NFL opportunities, right? Like there were some NFL teams that were interested in Matt Campbell, but he's got a really good thing going on at Iowa State. Just a really, really good coach. So I'm high on Iowa State. I think that they're going to get to the Big 12 championship, and I'm going to go with the Cyclones to win and cover this week.
I'm right there with you, Lev. I think that the international travel is going to have an effect, and a tough physical game, albeit a sloppy game. And I think that Iowa State's still figuring out how do you have this big play offense without two guys that were heading off to the NFL last year. So I think they might rely on that run game a little bit, maybe try to control the ball there. I think they do win, but South Dakota is also the number 5 FCS team in the country. So like this is a proven team at that level. And I'm sure they're going to be, hyped up trying to play spoiler here. So I think that Iowa State does get it just based on their talent alone, but I think it's within 2 touchdowns, probably about 10 points.
All right, moving on to the nighttime slate on Saturday. ASU is hosting NAU. This game is airing on ESPN Plus for now. I mean, I don't know what the future of ESPN Plus holds now with the new ESPN app launching, but that's where you can find this particular game. The Sun Devils are favored by 28.5 in this contest. This is an NAU program that's on the upswing. They're in preseason top 20. They went to the playoffs last year for the first time since 2017. I am going to defer to Jordan for some ASU expertise, and I'm also going to defer to Justin for some sort of Kanye Udo puns, as I am certainly not an expert on hip hop. So you guys have the floor when it comes to ASU and their new running back.
Yeah, with ASU, this is one of the deepest college teams I've seen. And this is one, not to bring up the teacup from last year, I think they're trying to keep that twist the knife mentality. And this is one where you can really make a statement that last year wasn't a fluke, that all the offense didn't walk out the door when Cam Scadaboo went to the NFL. And there's been some discussion about Sam Leavitt being a Heisman hopeful. So is that a game where he can take some shots downfield to Jordan Tyson and, the potential first round wide receiver, and really try to move that ball? And then, as I mentioned, that depth, I think even if it does get to a point where the second teamers get in there, there's still a lot of competition happening and a lot of opportunity for certain guys to try to jump up. So Jeff Sims also stayed in Arizona State, and this is his last year of college football. He could have tried to find a starting opportunity. This is an opportunity for him to get some tape for NFL teams for this upcoming year's draft. So I could see a scenario where maybe they do try to get him some passing, and it's not quite like the second team comes in and it's just halfback dive every single time. I think that there could be some times to take some shots. So that's why I'm going to take ASU against the spread. I think it will be over 28.5. But yeah, this is a team that I think, for as much as they've heard their flowers throughout the offseason, they're still pissed about the Peach Bowl. And they're still pissed about how that ended and the targeting call, and everybody in that 2 deep that had eligibility left, just about everybody came back. And I think it's to try to run it back. And they're not looking to have it be a, potential fight here at halftime and then eventually ASU pulls away. I think they really want to make a statement that they're trying to make that jump into that next echelon of college football teams and not just be the one-hit wonder.
Could not agree more, Jordan. I think ASU is going to clobber NAU this weekend. As far as like the Kanye references, well, I mean, Kanye Udo is no college dropout. That's why he transferred from Army to ASU. And he's going to be an ultralight beam in this offense. And he's going to give how do I put it? He's going to give Kenny Dillingham the good life as an offensive play caller with his versatility. I mean, he was a top 30 rusher in college football last year. And not only do you have Kanye Udo, but you also have Kyson Brown as well. Their running back room is really good.
And I would probably say Kyson's probably ahead of Kanye right now.
Yeah.
Kyson's done just about everything right, and he's been kind of the pace car in that room. And Raleek Brown's kind of the orange to the apples in that group because you can use him in so many different ways. But I would say right now, if there was like a chance to have a quote unquote featured back, it's probably Kyson Brown over Kanye Udo.
And then on Saturday night, it all falls down for NAU. So ASU wins and they covered.
I didn't really get any of those references, but I appreciated all of them.
They were hit.
So good job. Good job, Justin. Just to go against the flow here a little bit, I'm going to take the points and take NAU to cover that. The game could be 56-28 and you win your bet, right?
Right.
So we saw that, NAU can be a kind of a prickly opponent last year against Arizona, though, there was a different set of circumstances. That Arizona offense was broken. We just didn't know it at the time. All right, so we're going to skip the Arizona-Hawaii game for now, save it for last. Moving on to the last game of the night on Saturday, which is an old school Pac-12 matchup between Utah and UCLA at the Rose Bowl. This game's at 8 o'clock our time. It is on Fox. Utah is favored by 5.5. As we all know, they have a new quarterback, and Devin Dampier. And Devin Dampier was the hardest quarterback to sack in all of college football last year. He had a pressure to sack percentage of 4.1% for a minimum of 320 dropbacks. Number one in all of college football. So that is a new and interesting element that Utah has. Also brought over the offensive coordinator. I think that moving on from the whole Cam Rising saga is going to be a big positive for the Utes program. They also might have the best offensive line in the country, led by Spencer Fano. Meanwhile, UCLA, a lot of storylines there too, with Nico Iamaleava coming over from Tennessee, his sort of controversial exit from there. They actually played way better at the end of the season last year. UCLA, Deshaun Foster faced some similar challenges to Brent Brennan in that he was kind of a late hire with coming in, even though it was, his alma mater and there was a lot of familiarity there. He's already on the staff. Still, it's hard when you get that late start. A lot of transfers on this UCLA team, so a little bit of a mystery there. I really like Utah this season. I think Utah is a team that could win the Big 12. I put them in my top 25. I'm going to take them in this game as well and lay the 5.5 points.
Me too. I got Utah to win by a touchdown or 10 points. I think UCLA will keep it competitive, but I think the coaching of Kyle Whittingham and just their brand and who they are is going to allow them to pull away in the fourth quarter. And look out for weather in this game. Apparently there's a heat warning in Pasadena this weekend. They're like, yeah, it's going to be in the 90s. And I'm like, okay, 90s. I'll show you extreme heat warning, Pasadena. But yeah, it's going to be a hot one. And, since the weather is warm, well, what do you do on a nice sunny day in Southern California? Well, you go to the beach. You go outside. You do anything but go to the Rose Bowl and watch UCLA football. So I think there's going to be a large contingent of Utah people there. You're probably might hear more Utah fans than UCLA fans, which is just crazy to think. But I'm going to go with Utah to win by 7 or 10 points.
I really like Utah as well. Devin Dampier, got to see him up close when he was at Pinnacle and Saguaro High School. And he was a game changer then. And Jason Mons probably does not have his open division title without Devin Dampier. And he has only progressed into a bigger and bigger playmaker. And Lev, I'm right there with you. If he can limit the turnovers, this is a real dangerous team. And I think Utah, whether it was because of the quarterback play or maybe some depth issues last year, like they got away from that physical, like punch you in the mouth style. Didn't see that when they played ASU. Didn't see that when we traveled to Salt Lake and saw them against U of A. I think it's going to come back. And like you said, probably two of the best offensive tackles in all of college football. I think they're going to win, but I think it's going to be close. So I think UCLA is going to cover. But I think Utah will win straight up.
I think Utah, they might have the best O-line in all of college football altogether. Like from top to bottom, I think those guys are legit. As far as Dampier goes, who's one quarterback that he reminds you of that played under Whittingham? Is he Tyler Huntley?
He's more physical than Huntley. It's honestly like, in terms of running, like he's elusive, but I wouldn't say he's like this breakaway speed. He just knows how to navigate it. So it like, and body type, I don't have it in front of me, but like, it's almost a little bit more like Alex Smith in terms of, and I know that's not Whittingham, but that's Utah. But yeah, off of top of mind, like he is a built guy. He's a really built guy. So I don't like, I guess Huntley, if we're talking strictly Whittingham, but nobody really, it also doesn't help that Rising played for him for like 6 years. So like that takes a big chunk out, but yeah, he's a really unique guy where it's just, he's a physical runner and he's faster than he may look. But it's definitely not like, oh, I'm going to scurry out and just pick up my 8 and get out of here. It's like he can kind of mix and match and navigate how he needs to.
He had 1,166 rushing yards last year, which is a ton for a quarterback in college football. But also, his touchdown to interception ratio was 12-12. So, there's a little bit of work to do. But like Jordan said, I think they're going to get back to being a physical team that just tries to run the ball down everybody's throats. And I think they're going to be successful for the most part. All right. So we're going to skip ahead here to Monday. Okay. There's games all throughout the weekend, Sunday and Monday. And we've got one Monday night, September 1st. This game is TCU at North Carolina. You may have heard that North Carolina has a new coach by the name of Bill Belichick. This game is, of course, on ESPN because ESPN just has to have that big Belichick hit. The Horned Frogs are actually favored in this game by 3.5, even though it is in Chapel Hill. And that's because I think TCU is a pretty underrated program heading into the season. Not a lot of talk about Josh Hoover, even though he had the second most passing yards in the Big 12 last year, nearly 4,000. He was tied for third with 27 touchdown passes. They did lose a lot of their receiving production. Jack Besh, Savion Williams. They've got some up and comers, some transfers who probably will be able to fill that production. They bring back Bud Clark, who's one of the best defensive backs in the country, second team All Big 12 last year. Their defensive coordinator, by the way, is Andy Avalos, the former head coach at Boise State. And they weren't great defensively last year, but they did improve. So theoretically, they're on the upswing there. North Carolina announced this week that Gio Lopez is going to be their starting quarterback. He is a transfer from South Alabama, where he was a dual threat type of player. They brought in 41 transfers this offseason, which was tied for third most. The most transfers brought in by any programs, that would be West Virginia and Purdue, 54 apiece. A lot of turnover there for Rich Rod. And hopefully we'll have a Rich Rod game here coming up. I had to pick and choose what I felt like were the best matchups, the most interesting games. There isn't even a line on West Virginia, Robert Morris, as we're recording this. So we will definitely break down some West Virginia as the season goes along. All of that being said, I think that Belichick and his son, Steve, will kind of ugly this game up a little bit. I think it's the only way that UNC can win. Like if it gets to be a shootout, game in the 30s or 40s. I think it's TCU all the way. So I'm going to take TCU to win, but only by a field goal. And I'm going to take the 3.5 points for the home underdog Tar Heels.
Yeah, the receivers being gone, Besh and Williams, those are two dynamic playmakers, especially Williams, because Williams kind of like a Deebo Samuel type of player where he's a really good receiver, big body, but you can also use him kind of as like this running back utility type of player. And he had a lot of production last year in that offense. So how they replace him, I'm curious to see how that goes for Sonny Dykes. Yeah, I agree with you, Lev. I think that North Carolina is going to figure out a way to try to make this an ugly matchup, but I'm going to go with the college football play calling experience of Sonny Dykes to go into Chapel Hill and win this game by a touchdown. I'm going with TCU to win and cover. Welcome to college football, Bill Belichick.
To keep it with the Kanye theme, this happened a couple hours ago. Apparently, Bleacher Report is reporting Bill Belichick, Jordan Hudson have filed a trademark for Gold Digger. Gold Digger,
man.
So I won't say any other lyrics from that song. But yeah, just keeping it with
we want prenup.
So I'm going TCU. Josh Hoover, another just quarterback that I really like. There is some turnover in that wide receiver room, but looks like they have some guys that have proven it at the college level. And there's just a lot of unknown with UNC. So I'll take more of the known quantity with TCU and have them cover.
All right. Last game is, of course, Arizona. They are hosting Hawaii in the home and season opener. This game is at 7:30 p.m. It is on TNT, which is now a broadcast partner of the Big 12. You can also watch this game on HBO Max if that is your flavor. Hawaii played last week. And after Hawaii played last week, the spread for this game went from 13.5 now up to 17.5. And that's because Hawaii did not look great in that game, even though they won. PFF gave Stanford's quarterback, Ben Gulbranson, a 29.4 grade for that game. Does that mean that Hawaii has an amazing defense? Or does it mean that Ben Gulbranson just isn't that great of a college quarterback? I think it's the latter. I think that Noah Fafita has a lot more game, better arm strength, better mobility. I think he feels really comfortable in this offense. I know 17.5 is a lot. And, if you took Arizona against the spread last year, you probably bankrupt or destitute right now because I think they were 2-10 against the spread.
Yep.
But I am going to take the Wildcats. I had in my season predictions, Justin, I had Arizona winning 35-26. But after what I saw from Hawaii in a game where neither team looked very good, I feel like Arizona is superior. And I think they're going to cover that 17.5. I can see them winning this game by 20 to 27 points. So give me the Wildcats.
I'm going with the Wildcats as well in the Fetty Wap fashion, 17-38. That's going to be the final score, 38-17, Arizona. And I think what is going to happen is I really think that Danny Gonzalez and this defense, they smell blood in the water. They see Micah Alejado, and yes, he did have some impressive moves despite having that leg injury. But once he got that leg injury, they didn't score a touchdown the rest of the game. They had 3 field goals and 3 punts in that second half. And with a quarterback like that who's a little bit hobbled, I think they're going to do whatever they can to make his life hell. And they're going to do whatever they can to keep him in the pocket, keep him, just kind of corralled. And the guy does not throw many interceptions. As a matter of fact, between his time at Bishop Gorman in Las Vegas and his time at Hawaii, we're talking about over 130 touchdown passes and just 4 interceptions. This guy is a really good quarterback, does not make a lot of dumb throws. But I really feel like in this game, Danny Gonzalez is going to throw a lot of interesting stuff at him. And maybe we could see Genesis Smith or somebody else on that back end come up with an interception and end his streak. Micah Alejado has not thrown an interception since his junior year of high school at Bishop Gorman. I think he throws one Saturday night against Arizona. I think the turnover sword comes out. I think this defense, that's going to be the story of the game. And then I also think on the offensive side of the ball, the story of the game is going to be Arizona's rushing attack, really establishing that with Kedrick Reesano, Ismail Mahdi, and Quincy Craig. And, we're going to see some good stuff out of Noah Fafita and that receivers, but I think defense, pass rushing Micah Alejado, making him force some turnovers, and then running the football, I think that's what Arizona's going to do, and I think they're going to win by 3 touchdowns.
This is a chance for the Wildcats to give a good first impression for all 3 of their new coordinators. And I think they're going to take advantage. Danny Gonzalez, I can speak to my experience with him at ASU. He will throw out some wacky stuff and have some stuff that shouldn't quite work, but certainly does and will confuse the heck out of opposing offenses. I think there also could be a bit of a letdown factor coming off of that big win that Hawaii had. Maybe just the emotional letdown, being in 100-degree heat. It may dip a bit below that, but not by much when kickoff happens. But I think Brent Brennan is well aware that 5 of the first 6 games are at home. And if you can get Tucson behind you and build up some excitement early on, you can get some momentum and get some butts in seats. So I think to have a great first impression of that is going to be really important. So I'm going to take U of A to cover that 17.5 and take care of business. And, even last year when they had that record-setting performance by T-Mac and, everything that went into those big plays, it still just felt like it was a little bit tougher than it should have been. And there were a couple things where it was like, I don't know if this seems right. I think they, much like ASU, they want to make a statement of like, this is a different team from last year. Please support us. Let's go show what we can do.
Yeah. To Justin's point real quick about Alejado and his, maybe lack of mobility. He was pressured 10 times by Stanford and was sacked 4 times. So, if they were able to get into the backfield, he wasn't able to move around that much. You will see what he looks like in this game. He was hobbling considerably on that ankle in the second half of that game. But yeah, I think we're all in agreement on this one. It's an opportunity for Arizona to make an opening statement.
All right, real quick. Over-unders, we got 3 of them. 3.5 rushing touchdowns, over-under for Arizona.
I'll go over.
I'll go over as well. Jordan?
Over.
Sacks for Arizona, 5.5 as a team.
Under.
Under? I'll go over by a nose.
I'll go under by a nose.
All right, and lastly, attendance. Let's do 40,500.
My brain does not work like you could show me a crowd and be like, this was 500 people. I'd be like, cool. And then, or this is 6,000 people. I'd be like, cool. I don't, let's say under.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go under also.
Yeah, I think announced attendance, it's going to be a little bit over. But if we're talking about butts and seats, actually people at the game, I'll say the under as well.
Yeah, to Jordan's point, like these first 2 games are an opportunity to build momentum for maybe a big crowd and a big moment in week 3 at home against Kansas State.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like show that things have changed. This team is better. This team is fun. This team's going to score a lot of points. And then maybe we'll see that groundswell of support for week 3.
It's going to be a special night Saturday night. You got Polynesian Heritage Night. There's also a concert series getting started before the game. You also have the Wildcat Walk as well. And then at halftime, you're going to see Tetero McMillan, Randy Robbins getting inducted into the Ring of Honor. Before the game, Jonas Savianaya, Tyler Loop, some other NFL Wildcats, they will be honorary captains. So it's going to be a special night, 7:30 p.m. kickoff at Arizona Stadium. The Wildcats are taking on the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. And right now, 17.5-point favorites for the Arizona Wildcats, but we all have Arizona winning and covering. Make sure you follow all of our coverage of the Arizona Wildcats on Tucson.com and the Wildcaster mobile app. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and comment the Wildcast podcast. Jordy, thank you for joining us, man. We appreciate you.
Absolutely excited for this year.
All right, see you guys next week. Appreciate you guys.